Tonight we have something really good, but he's been charged with a crime. The show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. You know it's voting time, and so I have candidates that are on the Democratic ticket here to talk about the positions that they're running for and why we need to get out the vote. I won't belabor the point. I'm going to start right away. I'll tell you right now, I have three people in the studio with me. Ann Bennett Harris.
Harris Bennett,
Ann Harris Bennett, running for county clerk. I have Ursula Hall, who's running for the 189th District Court, and Latasha Lewis, who's running for the 295th District Court. And I am going to start with Ann Harris Bennett, who's going to tell us who she is and why she's running and why she's qualified for the job. So without any further ado, Ms. Bennett, tell us why you're running.
Thank you, Vivian. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm running for the office of Harris County Clerk. That is the office that maintains the records for the county and the probate courts at law. This office is the maintainer and keeper of vital records like your birth records, death records, issues marriage licenses, and conducts our county elections. I have been in the legal industry most of my young life. As a part of my background, I've worked in the courts, in the state district courts and civil court administration. I've been a legal secretary and paralegal most of my life. I currently have a business called Legal Shield, which is legal insurance, which everybody needs. And I've spent at least 14 or 15 years researching years and years, 100-year-old documents that were relative to Texas, Spanish, and Mexican land grants. That is part of the reason that I am most qualified to occupy this position. The other thing is that I've been conditioned through my years of experience working for plaintiff lawyers and for defense lawyers, working for Democrat judges and Republican judges, that I understand the importance of maintaining the integrity of the record and taking partisan politics out of an office where everyone wants to know that their vote has been counted, that there aren't any shenanigans going on in the democratic process. This is a very important office that sometimes gets overlooked because we only hear of the county clerk when election rolls around, or unless you have to go down to the courthouse and file documents in a case that you may be involved in. The importance of the county clerk maintaining the records that you file in your cases, of course you want your record to be straight. You don't want anyone finagling around with anything that's got to do with your life or your livelihood. So the person that occupies that office has to keep a nonpartisan, above board, transparent, and an honest and fair playing field. It's not an office that needs to be marred with politics, and that's why I'm running for this office, to change the way that things have been done and the way things are currently being done in that administration. You've probably heard recently about the issues with mail ballots that are sitting in our post office because our county clerk misinformed our ballot voters and printed 69 cents postage due on those envelopes. Those are sitting at our post office with a penny due. I'm not quite sure if those have even been delivered. No voter in this county should walk away wondering whether or not their vote has been counted. I call on the county clerk to get those ballots from the post office and take them to his office and count those ballots as they are intended to be counted. My name is Ann Bennett. I'm running for this office to clean it up, take the partisan politics out of it, and run an office that is in the third largest county in this nation that needs to have the technology that's needed for our courts to run properly, for our litigants and our lawyers to be able to function properly, and to take the partisan politics out of our democratic process.
Very, very good. So have you heard anything more about the 69 cents postage? I was told that Lane Lewis, the chair of our Harris County Democratic Party, was supposed to be writing a check for that postage. I heard that through the grapevine. I don't know if it's true. Have you heard that?
Yes, I heard that. The truth of that matter is that the county clerk's office should have an account at the post office. Anytime any mail ballot comes through there that doesn't have the proper postage, the county clerk's office should take care of that with the post office. Now, whether or not the chairman has paid that or not, I don't believe that's happened. I am still wondering whether or not our county clerk has taken care of his business at the post office.
But that seems like that would be illegal. It seems like there should be some action taken against him by the Democratic Party to sue him. I bet if the Republicans were, if the Democrats were in charge, the Republicans would sue the Democrats for it, and you would think that Lane Lewis and the Democratic Party would sue the current clerk for first of all, not doing his job, for misleading the public, and for allowing that postage to be there. You would just think, I mean, it's not his money, it's the county's money, so you would think that some injunctive relief or some type of legal action would be taken.
I would think that both parties would be concerned, because those mail ballots.
Well, we know both parties are not concerned.
They should be if everything's on the fair and square.
I mean, I would think that both should be, but I would think traditionally, since Harris County is a Republican county, yes, and there are more Republicans that vote at the polls than Democrats, the Republicans don't care about that. But I know that the Democrats should want all votes counted, whether they're at the polls or not, particularly since we're the underdog, because you just never know. I mean, it could possibly be more Republicans who are using the mail ballot. I mean, you never know, but you would just think that the democratic process, because the county clerk has been a Republican for the last 20 years, you would think that the Democratic Party would sue them for that. You know, we've certainly sued each other for less.
Yes, we have, and I
when I was running,
never
so
really
you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm not running again.
seen any really good result. The truth of the matter is, Vivian, is that we don't know whose ballots those are down there.
Right.
And
you shouldn't know. It's secret ballots.
They're Republicans. They're Democrats.
They're independents.
They're independents. They are people who are disabled. They're veterans. So that's why I say both parties should be concerned. I'll be following up. I'm trying to keep my eye on that process. I have stood with the NAACP, ACLU, and other nonprofits asking the Department of Justice to step in. We've had enough problems with this county clerk that I believe it's time for the Department of Justice to step in.
I agree with you. All right, Ursula Hall, I'm going to go to you next. Thank you for being a guest, and you can look at me or you can look at the camera and address the audience as to why you're running and why you're qualified.
Thank you so much, Vivian. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, Truth and Justice. My name is Ursula Hall, as I believe the screen says and Vivian said, and I'm a candidate for the 189th Civil District Court. My mantra for the campaign is judicial experience, intellectual integrity, and servant leadership. For the last 9 years, I've had the privilege and honor of serving as an appointed judge on the municipal court in the capacity as an associate municipal judge. That's given me the opportunity to learn that very unusual and amorphous thing called judicial demeanor. Much like the Supreme Court says about pornography, it's one of those things, you know it when you see it. Judges whose demeanor is acceptable and seemingly fair and open and honest, and in my view, most importantly, polite, is difficult to attain. However, I've enjoyed learning how to be a judge for the last 9 years and exercising that responsibility fairly and openly. That includes polite, humble, kind treatment to clerk staff, court staff, bailiffs, and citizens alike. In that time, I've also learned that fairness is largely comprised of patience, the patience to understand that you as a judge must always be open to learning. And while the municipal court is a classy misdemeanor court comprised largely of traffic matters, believe it or not, there are new things to learn every day, even about traffic matters, and I enjoy doing it. Intellectual integrity. It means that I believe that a judge should be willing and always capable of working hard, not only literally a full work day, but bothering to read all the matters presented to the judge, bothering to inform oneself about those things he or she may not know, inquiring and demanding of the parties a full, complete record, and never ever substituting one's own beliefs or views for the actual law. And finally, servant leadership. I have a long history of service in the community as a result of my upbringing, and I believe in service, and I believe in public service, and I honestly believe that no courtroom ever belongs to a particular person. I have a personal promise to myself to work very hard, never to say things like my courtroom, my bailiff, my anything. That little psychological exercise is intended to help me remember the court belongs to you, the members of the public. I think that kind of humility makes for a good judge. Servant leadership means that while I am to lead the courtroom, should I have the privilege of being elected, but also to recognize always my role as servant. Servant leadership, I believe, would serve the people of Harris County very well. I'm running because I have had the privilege, as I've said, of enjoying the diversity on the municipal court in Houston. And as a result of that opportunity, it's very clear to me that that kind of diversity is lacking in the state district courts. In the city of Houston, we have every stripe, age, type, style, and demeanor of a judge one can expect, in part because we have the privilege of having about 60 associate judges, and then also a collection of full-time judges. The associate judges assist the full-time judges on the weekends, nights, and almost as fill-in judges. Because we're such a large county and a large city, the court is open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. Sunday, the jail courts work 24 hours, as they do all during the week. My most recent shift was 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. because we also handle, as a result of the district attorney's directives, to have full-time blood draws, warrant requests from the police department throughout our shifts. So we have every type in the municipal courts, and it makes it clear that it's useful to the public. When the members of the public, who often will only see a municipal judge in their entire lives, it'll be the only kind of court into which they ever have matters presented or adjudicated. The mantra right now at City Hall and at the Municipal Courts Department, led by our Chief Judge Barbara Hartle, is essentially to treat people well. Customer service focus is the way in which we're expected to run our courts. I enjoy it, and I enjoy people. And that's reflected in the way I handle myself on the bench. So I'm running to bring the perspective and diversity that my background and personal life experiences can bring to the bench. I think it matters, I think justice matters, and I think diversity matters very much.
That is a very good commentary and reason for running. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I've already voted, but I've already voted straight ticket because I'm a Democrat.
All right.
And I didn't create the system. As I tell my viewers, the system was created by our legislators many moons ago, before I was born. And like many Democrats try to go to the polls and say, I'm only going to vote for who I know, I try to continue to encourage viewers, if you're a Democrat or Republican, vote straight ticket, because that's the way it's designed. It's designed to be a ticket party. You'll never know all the judges. I know all 37 criminal judges, the 15 misdemeanor ones, which are the county court judges, and the 22 felony judges, which are the criminal district courts. But I don't know not one of the district courts that is civil. I mean, I know some of the judges, but I've never been in their courts.
Sure.
Let me just say that. I know a few of them because I campaigned with them, and a few of them are Democrats that campaigned with me during the last Obama election that won. But I don't really know them. I've never been to their courts, so I wouldn't even know who to vote for. I wouldn't know in family court who to vote for. I wouldn't know in probate court who to vote for. So I respect the system that I have to vote in, and I vote straight ticket. Now, if I know, someone personally that's a Republican, then I can, I'll vote for them if I think they're the better person. So then I would unclick just that one name because I actually know this person, that is a Republican, is my friend. I know she's fair or he's fair. But in terms of, I start with the straight ticket.
And I appreciate that very much, Vivian, because while some people say it somehow seems almost unintelligent or somehow lacking in judgment to vote straight ticket, one of the things I often try to remind people is whether we like it or not, it is, as you say, essentially a two-party system. I didn't create it, but the truth is I, like every candidate, had to pick a team. And while I've had the same team my whole life and call myself a yellow dog Democrat, it's also true that each party's platform tells us what the party is about. And both of us have living documents that one can read and explore. And when I read some of the things that the Republican platform includes, I am frankly appalled. And while I realize not every candidate agrees with every single item in every single party platform, it is a choice. And so essentially every candidate is saying, if I had to align myself with a team, the one with which I'm most comfortable is this one or that one. And I picked the Democratic ticket. And I don't think it's unreasonable for people to recognize that every single candidate has done that. They've picked a team, and they've picked a team's politics, they've picked a team's leadership, they've picked a team's candidates, but most importantly, they've picked a team's platform. And when it comes to justice matters, and frankly, for me, all of politics, it does matter very much that one accept that we do have to pick a side, and candidates have.
Right. And I also am trying to educate my viewers to understand that when you vote for 5 people and you leave 100 positions vacant, the Republicans vote straight ticket. I mean, they don't go in there and play, they vote straight ticket. And that's the way it always has been. Now, if you want to change it, you have to get to your legislators and ask them to make it nonpartisan. But that's not the way it is. So until it's nonpartisan, like our city elections, like when you vote for mayor or city council, then it's nothing we can do about it. We have to stick with the team. So as Ursula Hall is telling you, you need to pick a team and vote straight ticket. And if you happen to know someone that's on the other side that you want to vote for, when you vote that straight ticket in the ballot booth, you still have to circle around. You go through name by name because you have to get to the end to get to the propositions if you want to vote for the proposition. Otherwise, you can hit straight ticket and cast your ballot if you don't want to do that. But if you hit straight ticket and then there's someone down the list, you have to circle through and you can unclick that person, that Democrat, and put a Republican, or that Republican and put a Democrat if you happen to know them. But don't leave them blank. Pick a side. Pick a side, because it hurts the people at the bottom.
Yes.
It hurt us so much when Obama ran 2 years ago, because a lot of Democrats won, but because the party sued the person running for DA, many people, even on this TV show, said, "Vivian, I'm not voting straight ticket." And I encourage you to still do that. And I had Lloyd Oliver on. We talked about why that wasn't fair for the Democratic Party to do that, since all of us were contributing our money and they didn't, $10,000, and they didn't ask us for permission to sue somebody on the ticket. And it hurt us because we were giving up our lives and our livelihood. And that's why I can never afford to do it again. I've actually spent, and I've said this over and over, about $80,000 running.
We miss
about
you
60
on
the
the
first
ticket.
time and 20 the next time, trying to help people get together. But I can't. At 56, I can't do it anymore. So all I can do is, this can be my contribution.
Well, thank you
But
so
I can't.
much. Thank you for running, because
I can't
your
do it
candidacy
anymore.
makes a difference.
It
your
does.
Competency, your knowledge, your experience is useful for everybody, and it is unfortunate that we allow, as a party, and no one person is responsible for that, but the truth is, as you have alluded to, In fact, we Democrats are registered 3 times more than Republicans, which most people are shocked to learn. We are registered. We
just
say
don't vote.
we want to participate, but they outvote us on voting day 3-1. And so that's how we end up with this, what they call down ballot drop off. So some people think we're just saying straight ticket because we hate the other side or
No.
we think they're bad guys. No, not at all.
I think they're smart. I mean, they
Yeah.
play the politics as it was designed.
Absolutely.
But what we don't do as Democrats is play the politics as it's designed. We think that it's something intelligent to say, I'm only voting for
Exactly.
who I know.
Exactly.
But that's not the way it's designed.
Exactly.
It's designed to vote for the people, vote for a party. It's a party state. And until that's changed, that's the intelligent thing to do.
Right. That's how candidates like you and those of us who ran in 2010, longest ballot in the history of the United States, 71 Democratic candidates, every single judicial candidate lost because in part of down ballot drop off. You're absolutely right. Republicans vote straight ticket, and they do it without question.
Without question.
That's
you
a
don't have to
level
tell
of
them to do it.
discipline and wisdom that we need to snap to because.
Well, it's almost like Democrats are embarrassed to be Democrats and embarrassed to say it. I'm not embarrassed. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, I created the show 3 years ago is so that the underdogs could have a voice. We could talk about crime. We could talk about, have criminals tell their stories from their perspective and not from the media's perspective, because the media's perspective is the DA's perspective is one perspective.
Absolutely.
But there's another perspective there because when there's special people that get in trouble, then they get these other deals. And so we want to talk about it so we can all be informed and we can all be educated and we can make our whole community safer and better. And we're not going to be better and safer unless we're more informed. Because I was an accountant for 10 years before I was a lawyer, I'm real into cost-benefit analysis. And because I was a prosecutor under Johnny Holmes, and I have been around a long time, I know that we spend a lot of money and we get nothing for it.
Absolutely.
And so I've just decided to advocate in a different way.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. So, because when we ran in 2010, I was trying to do something that was a little unheard of by making us all get together as a separate section to reinforce the big section.
Yes.
Because I had studied and I knew we always lose by 100,000 votes. And so I was trying to see if we could figure out a way. That's not a big gap when you have 4 million people and you have the registered voters. But if we really, even our subculture of minorities could have really worked together and understood what I was trying to do, but I think we could have done it, but it was hard to understand.
Well, that same...
Because certain people in our group, I remember wouldn't make commercials at night, late at night, like it was really going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Like they didn't really trust the numbers games. And I know a lot of lawyers are not number people, but I was a number person first. So you can't change it.
I say it all the time, it's math. When it comes to politics and elections specifically, it is math. And that same reticence to accept the truth and value of subgroups exists now. And it's unfortunate because we don't have the political leadership for candidacy, not in real life for the rest of life, but in candidacy. Who does one look to say that is the right thing to do, that is the right approach? Our equals sometimes aren't willing to accept our viewpoints in that regard, and I think it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate because there's a way to get to people, but you have to divide and conquer. Everybody has to do a little role.
Everybody has a subgroup of some sort.
And you have to plan it and
whether
plot
it's
it.
cookie people
and have
or
and be of like mind.
Yeah.
You have to do that. We could have carried it as minorities, but we weren't together.
Right.
And so that's the way it works.
Which is a whole nother show.
A whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. But Obama had already demonstrated it to us, so
he proved it, right? So what's the problem?
He showed us the ground game.
Yeah. And the math.
That's what I was trying to do.
The math shows us it's still
true.
Trade
magazine and put it in the do a ground game. I was trying.
Ms. King, I have told many times.
I wanted to put it in the barbershop, beauty shops. I wanted to split the town up. I wanted to get talking points to make people.
I tried to mimic you.
I tried. But, everybody fought me. They fought me tooth and nail when we had those little meetings. I had Judon Boney to give the nut talks. And, I organized all of that. But
he has a consultancy that we had hoped to use, but couldn't agree to afford the resources.
I know. And I thought that when we were trying to do it, if we could just put in 1,000 apiece or whatever, because there was a lot of us, and groups saw the majority saw what we were doing, then they would have put the money in. They did put the money in later, but they took it and gave it to somebody else who didn't understand what I was trying to do.
In fairness, we have that one little wrinkle that the ethics requirements that we as judicial candidates can't actually self-select and pool money. So
right, but it was Trade Magazine doing it. Remember?
But it was Trade Magazine.
See, that's
doing
it. I had read all the rules.
Yeah,
so that's why I had a magazine doing it for.
You'll remember I gave you my money because I wanted to be in on that brilliant strategy. But yes, we need need that third party with the courage, the knowledge, the ethical understanding.
And they had it.
Yeah, yeah.
But they just haven't thrived like they wanted to. They were a new magazine, and so they were really trying.
Well, like you, I've committed in the future, whether I win or lose, whatever divine order has in store for me, I will be helping develop some sort of something that promotes that message, that there are parallel approaches for every community. Again, whether you're the cookie queen or you're African American or you're into fast cars. I mean, there's so many subgroups that we could use to reach people, and we should take advantage of them.
And we have to do it. I just think that part of my legacy I want people to know is I cared and I tried. You know, whether it might not benefit me. I'm sad because my whole legal career is going to be under Republican rule.
Right. Maybe not, Vivian. Maybe not. Let's check it out on Tuesday.
I know. I mean, I know. I'm just saying. I'm negative like that, and my Republican friends even tell me, "You've worked too hard. You should wait until there's a Democratic governor and just get an appointment." Because
that'll work.
Hard. You know,
that'll
you
work.
Work too hard.
That could happen on Wednesday, Vivian.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm here trying.
I suppose it would have to be January 1st, but it could happen.
Okay. And not that I'm trying to get that, but I'm just saying that. Okay, Latasha, I'm sorry. I hadn't talked to you yet. Latasha Lewis.
Yes.
Tell us who you are. You can look at your camera and tell the viewers who you are and why you're running.
Well, I want to also say thank you so much for the invitation to come here and the opportunity to speak to your audience. I'm Latasha Lewis. I'm running for judge of the 295th Civil District Court. I moved here to Houston, to the Houston area, when I was 5, and I grew up in Acres Home. I have, in my lifetime, my young years, as some people would say, I've lived in Acres Home and traveled all the way to Africa and have been really lucky to do that. I'm the oldest child of a single mom who moved here and raised 3 girls who were all able to graduate from college, even though she never finished high school. I have practiced law for 14 years. After graduating from the University of Texas School of Law, I started at a large Texas-based international firm. And in 2008, I made partner there after being there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Didn't think I would be there that long, but I was. And so I made partner there, and I'm currently with a national law firm doing general litigation. My practice area, my specialty is environmental litigation, toxic tort litigation. I was a double major in environmental studies and political science, and so environmental issues is my first love, and toxics and chemicals are my first love, which is a horrible thing to say probably. But in my practice, I've handled a wide variety of lawsuits. Environmental lawsuits are large, they're unwieldy, they involve a lot of lawyers, and so I quickly jumped onto cases that were smaller, that would allow me courtroom time, that allow me to kind of get my hands dirty in the courtroom. And so I was fortunate to be able to do that. The civil district courts, in short form, I describe these courts as the courts that handle every type of lawsuit that you can think about that's not criminal, it's not family, probate, or bankruptcy. And if it doesn't fall within those general areas, it is probably a personal injury case, it is probably a property dispute, it is a discrimination case, it is an insurance case. And I've handled every type of those types of cases. I am running for this particular bench in this particular year in a way that I never thought I'd be running for judge because of the partisanship that judges have to run under a D or an R, although I am a lifelong yellow dog Democrat, because of 2 really important reasons that I focus on and I have focused on the campaign trail. I am experienced. I've told you about my 14 years. I'm also well respected, and for the last 7 years, I've been voted as one of the Texas Young Lawyers. I am the first and only African American to receive the Outstanding Young Lawyer Award that was given by the Houston Young Lawyers Association. But most importantly, I'm committed to serving our community. I'm a past president of the Houston Lawyers Association. I served on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters, but really, I love providing services to low-income and poor individuals in our community. Every year I've done more than 100 hours in addition to my regular work of providing pro bono services. And 2 things are important about that. One is the perspective that I would bring to the courts that I believe is sorely lacking. The perspective of having the experience of coming from Acres Home all the way to Africa and everything in between, I think is significant, is relevant, and it's absent from the civil courts. The perspective of being able to take the knowledge that you know and the law that you know and apply it in a way to the facts of the case to where it is fair, to where it is impartial, and to where there is no prejudgment. The second most important thing is that in the civil courts, in the last 5 to 6 years that we've experienced this recession, the number of individuals that have appeared in civil courts that have to represent themselves has exploded. With the real estate litigation, with evictions going on every day, those dockets ballooned. And I personally have handled many of those cases involving pro se litigants. We have great...
Oh, explain to my viewers what a pro se litigant is.
Oh, I will. Thank you. Well, a pro se litigant is someone who comes to court to represent themselves, whether they file the lawsuit themselves or they have to defend themselves. They are appearing in court without a lawyer, without counsel, and they are expected to understand the laws and the rules, and the judge is supposed to apply the laws and the rules in the same way as if they had an attorney. And in Texas, there are over 25 million people that would qualify for public aid from the various public agencies that we have in the state of Texas. But we do not have enough lawyers, enough public servants, enough nonprofit agencies to serve these folks. And so they end up in civil courts. When I served on the Houston Young Lawyers Association board, I worked on a project that was very important to me, and it was a project that would match pro se litigants, people who are appearing in court, with young lawyers and provide a counsel at critical times in litigation, at a dispositive motion or a summary judgment where there was a motion to throw the case out of court, or at a time where the case was going to trial. It would provide the opportunity for a knowledgeable lawyer to come in and get the courtroom experience that many lawyers aren't able to get these days, especially young lawyers in civil courts. But it also, most importantly, would provide counsel and representation to an individual that usually, because they were poor or low income or even just middle class, are not able to get a lawyer. Unfortunately, that program was not able to get off the ground. You have to get all the civil court judges, or at least most of them, to jump on board on that. That is something that I think we should bring to the civil courts, that I personally would want to bring to the civil courts and would advocate for that if I'm elected on November 4th, and hopefully when I'm elected on November 4th. But as a side note, when recently in Texas, a similar program was created at the Texas Supreme Court, where Chief Justice Wallace Jefferson created a list of appellate attorneys, a list of over 300 lawyers who would step in at the Supreme Court to assist pro se litigants who had to take their case all the way to the Supreme Court. And it certainly happens. We need that type of project in the Harris County Civil Courts, and I would like to be the one to encourage all the other civil district judges to do that.
Done.
Again, I'm there's two. Again, my motto that I've said is winning the race for justice. Sports has been a large part of my family's life. I was a track athlete in college. It paid my way in college along with work study. And so I want to take that theme and take that winning attitude to win the race for justice for the Harris County citizens. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us all about you. All three of you are very much qualified for these jobs. Tell me, I didn't ask you, Ms. Lewis, what do you feel about the partisan politics?
I believe in the court system, it really is about fairness. It really is about applying the law to the facts of the case. And to the extent that the DRR would tell you what a judge would do, for the most part, it does not. The difference, however, that I believe that being a DRR has on your ability to really apply the law to the facts is your perspective. And is your attitude about people, all types of people that come into your court. It's about your experience with all types of people and all types of litigants, plaintiffs and defendants that come into your court. And that can form, that can shape your perception of the facts. And oftentimes, most times, a lot of times, judges are left to be the ones to perceive the facts and ultimately make decisions in cases, because very few cases actually go to the citizens of Harris County in a jury.
So even though you're at a big firm, you don't think that would you would be influenced by big firms' interests versus the little person?
I don't, because despite the fact, one, I guess one important issue is one that I've represented both plaintiffs and defendants. I've represented a plaintiff in a lawsuit, an environmental lawsuit against a big corporation. I've also represented the big corporation. Most importantly, though, I think that my decisions would be formed most by my experience and being able to understand that there's a wide variety of litigants that come to the court. And all of the litigants, whether they are individuals, whether they are corporations, all of them deserve fairness.
Absolutely.
All of them deserve impartiality, and all of them deserve for the law to be applied in the way that it results in justice. I think that is, I'm a philosophy minor in college, but I tell students that I talk to about the law that ultimately that is the point. That when when the law is not clear, when the law
As it
appears,
so rarely is.
as it so rarely is, that the whole point that I learned from my contracts professor is that so that justice will be done, so that the person is restored back to the position that they were before they were harmed.
Well, I have a question for all of you. I'll start with Ann since she's been quiet for a minute. I want to understand why it is that there was a time in Texas, in Harris County, that we had both Democrats and Republican judges. And even though the system was designed to vote straight ticket, there was a time when, you might remember, Ann, when Judge Rout was a long-term district court judge in criminal court. He had the 208th District Court that now Denise Collins had. When I first became a lawyer, I saw a little glimpse of Democrats and Republicans, because that was in 1992, and Ann Richards was still governor, and she, as a Democrat, had appointed John Kiles to the bench, and he was defeated by Denise Collins, who's still on that bench now, and that was in 92. And so that, and then in 94, that's when everybody became just one party. So there was a time that a long-term Democrat could run. So, and when I became a lawyer for those 2 years, from 92 to 94, there was that time when we had half Democrats and half Republicans.
That's right.
And they were running just like they do now. Yeah. So how was our electorate more educated to do that then versus now? And I'll start with you. What is different?
Well, what's different is that the Republican Party has gone totally to the right. And we see it now. We see it in what's happening. The Tea Party have infiltrated the Republican Party. These judges worked and got along. And you're right, there was a time when there was 50-50 on the bench, and you didn't have to be too concerned that if you went before a Republican judge that you might not get a fair shot. Now, the situation is, oh my God, I'm going before a Republican judge, and we are hearing on a daily basis what they're planning to do, and it's very scary. Like I said, I've worked for Democrat and Republican judges. I've worked for the Republican regime that came after the Routs and those judges that you and I grew up under. And the difference is that the Democratic judges have more empathy. They have life experiences. And no matter what you ladies may think, there will be a part of you that will go to that bench. And that part is what you have experienced in life. Your life experiences will help you understand what those litigants are feeling when they're in the courtroom. And you won't look at them as if they're something from outer space. And that's pretty
bad.
pretty
It's
bad
bad right now.
situation.
It's bad
When-
right
when-
now. I'm gonna hold my comment for the candidates. Ursula Hall, and my people hear me.
Vivian King.
They hear me rant. every day. It's not about me. It's about you,
I
Ursula.
think what's changed is multifold, and I will agree with Ann. I don't think absolute impartiality is humanly possible. I think it's ridiculous to ponder that notion, and I think it's ridiculous that it's dangerous for me to say so, because people say, "Oh my God, she said she's not impartial." No, I think we always, it's an absolute fact of human nature. We carry our experiences and our identity and our worldview with us everywhere we go, and there's no doubt that the view of a African-American woman in Texas is going to be different, more likely than not, than the view of an Anglo man, a poor person versus a wealthy person. So I think it's silly for us to even pretend in color blindness and complete impartiality. It's like Sotomayor said, Justice on the Supreme Court, there is a Latina lens, and for some people they're more informed by their gender, for some people they're more informed by their wealth. For me, and for many African Americans, race is one of the most informing characteristics ever. So I don't doubt it. But as a consequence of that, it actually creates more impartiality, because I very well know from regular life experience how unfair, unkind, and not impartial people can be. So I look for that in myself and in others. I guard against it. So the question you asked was, that I'm supposed to be answering, is, what has happened? Why are things so different? Well, I think it's
Because your father was involved in politics, and he knew Judge Rout, and I'm sure you knew Judge Rout. And like I said, I didn't get to know him when I started as a lawyer in '92. John Kiles had already been appointed, and Judge Rout had already passed away.
A wonderful man.
But he was there for many years as a Democrat, and there were Democrats and Republicans. So that's an example, because I actually interned for Judge Kiles, so I knew a lot of his the history of Rout and of a lot of a few black guys and ladies, Bonnie Fitch, and a few people who
Alice
were
Bonner,
able to be Alice Bonner, who were able to be judges then. And other Democrats who are Anglo, who were judges for many years, Anglo who were many years, but and with Republicans side by side, and people were still going in voting like this gubernatorial election and presidential, but they would come out voting for different people would win, and they would hold those benches for years. Based on your father's history in politics and your knowledge as growing up here and being very involved in politics, what do you think was different about people?
Again, I think it's multifold. And yes, my father served in the military, Purple Heart, 3 Bronze Stars, and then had the privilege of going to the legislature. So served almost 50 years in public life. And I do say served because as a daughter, even with my bias that comes with being a daughter, I can say he was a wonderful public servant, and many agree with me even to this day. And he enjoyed the remarkable privilege of having friends, as we now say, on both sides of the aisle. So the problem, I think first and foremost, we're much less intelligent as a population than we used to be. It's difficult to say, but it is certainly true. Society as a whole has become a society that likes sound bites, shorter thoughts, shorter stories, more graphs, more pictures. So the idea that we can think through a problem is less popular, in part, I think, because of President Reagan's decision to change the Fairness in Media Act that removed the requirement that we have balanced news to show us 2 things. People may think it's simple. People may think it's a partisan comment. It's a fact. Shortly after that, we got these talking head TVs, and Fox News exploded.
I know. I didn't realize it. I blame Reagan for a lot of things, and I'm glad I've learned something tonight. I didn't know he was the one that did that, because we grew up with Walter Cronkite. We grew up with balanced reporting. We grew up with the media not being a money-generating aspect of a news story. They brought the news. They weren't to generate money. They weren't a for-profit part. So they made sure they got both sides, and they
could learn something.
And they taught us something. They worked really hard to show us both sides. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what happened when they changed. So repeat that again. I learned something.
Federal government,
I knew it changed, but I didn't know it was a federal law
FCC,
that allowed it to change.
Essentially removed the requirement that there be balance on both sides of any issue presented by those outlets described by the FCC as news outlets. And the removal of that requirement environment changed everything. There's no doubt about it. So it's not entirely our fault as citizenry, because I want to be well informed. I intend to be well informed. I am well informed in many ways, but it's very hard to do because it's hard to even find a good news source. So I'd say first off, we're misinformed, and a large basis of that misinformation is labels. We have decided that it's easy to call someone good or bad, black or white, Republican or Democrat, and so we label people and we're done. We don't analyze people as people so much anymore. We don't take facts and gather them and sift through them so much anymore. So I think the first part of the answer is we are into less personal exploration and research and more labeling. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, odd as it may seem, cruelty is now an acceptable part of American culture. It is now acceptable to believe that humans should be readily and easily locked up, that punishment is an amazing and valuable part of society, that prison is a very good place. And as a result, people are forced to take sides in ways that they otherwise might not. I think it's difficult for people to even say, this is my friend, the Republican, not this, but that invisible person, because people make assumptions. Suddenly, maybe you're not really a good Democrat, or maybe you're not really a good black person, or maybe you're not really what you say you are. That's kind of ridiculous. It should certainly be that one can have friends, acquaintances, role models on all sides, because we can all learn something from one another. Certainly, I find it valuable to learn from Republicans, because oftentimes they're so different in perspective than I am. But the perspective is not wrong, and it's not bad. It's just not mine.
Right.
And it's often not the one that I want to govern me, but I have to understand it in order to live with it and deal with it, and to be persuasive with my friends who may be Republican or leaning Republican, to help them consider my point of view and why things may be different. If one only knows African American people, for example, from media, well, chances are very high that you will be afraid of us, that you will think African American women are less than moral, that you will think African American men are thieves and serial daters with many children who don't support them and don't love them. That's the image the media gets. That's why the world so often thinks so poorly of us. Most people don't talk about it, but we export our media all around the world. And for many people, that's their only image of black people. And that's in part created by imagery and information that is simply inaccurate. So how do you improve that? Well, you have to know me. How do you know me? You have to meet me, mix with me, talk to me, read about me from an objective source, but that's hard to find.
Because there are no objective
It's
sources.
very hard to find. So if you don't have a personal experience, but when we work together and live together, go to church together, we often discover, oh my God, we're all just the same. We all have the same issues. We all care ultimately about the same things as human beings, but because of our life experiences, we come at it a different way. And a relevant example for your show, most people believe that it's impossible to have a negative encounter with the police if you were not doing anything. All policemen are not bad. All black folk are not right, but it's absolutely true that when I drive in my car and I encounter a police officer because I was allegedly speeding or something like that, I'm going to respond very differently than my Anglo counterparts more often than not. And I tell clients and I tell others absolutely positively, no confrontation, no challenge, no disagreement. You say yes sir, yes ma'am, and you be compliant. And I say that because officers are informed by the media and their experiences just as we are. But it's also true, in fairness to officers, something I think we don't talk about enough. Theirs is a scary job. For police officers, we don't ponder it the way we do, say, firefighters. We know they're going into a fire, that it's dangerous, it could burn them, it could kill them. We get that. But we often forget that for a police officer who pulls over a car on the side of the road, they have no idea what to encounter. When police officers take a call from 311 that I or you make, they don't know what they're going to encounter, and it's frightening. But we don't talk about police officers being afraid, because that's a whole nother story and a whole nother problem. But the point is, it's perception. So our perception of each other as humans has become so myopic and so labeled that we don't know each other anymore. We don't know that, for example, George Bush the Elder was a huge supporter of the NAACP. I can remember my parents going to their home in River Oaks to celebrate the NAACP, huge supporters of the UNCF, because they got it, and they were genteel, and they were polite, and they cared in ways that modern day politicians don't so much get the opportunity to do, because the
In
other
fact,
side will
modern day
label you.
politicians, because I deal with a one-party system as Republicans in the district attorney's office, they hate me because I speak out.
Yes.
But I'm one of the most conservative people you'll ever know.
Yes.
I have very
The
conservative
accountant in you.
values. Yeah, yeah. I mean, why would I become an accountant? But I'm just conservative, and black people are conservative.
Yes.
We don't. The women usually don't date around. We're not promiscuous, generally speaking. We want. We have very conservative values because they're based on Christian principles. Right. But what a lot of my Republican counterparts don't understand is that we want to be included, though.
Yes.
And so to be included, you have to pick a side that includes you.
Yes.
You can't be a Republican and be not including most people. But and so that's another thing that's scary, is because people assume that you're, liberal. What's liberal? I'm black. I'm not liberal.
right,
I'm
right.
black. I mean, I believe in fairness, justice. I believe that dangerous people should be locked up. I think we've gone crazy with the criminal justice system by locking people up for drugs. I've come to the conclusion that drugs probably shouldn't even be locked up unless there's something violent with it, like drugs and a gun.
I agree completely.
Because it's too many rich people with, it's too many people to do drugs. It's too many people, and no one.
Until we round them up in the rehab centers, really we've got a psychosis about it.
Right.
Street dude is bad,
Right.
but knocked up chick in rehab is
okay.
acceptable.
And she's at 16.
Yes.
And all of our kids who went to the normal schools now, we know that the white kids do just as many, if not more, drugs than the black kids, but it's only the black kids that's going to be
Better go to jail.
Profiled when they're stopped. I don't have a problem with the cops giving everybody a ticket, but don't take the black guy out of the car unless you're going to take the white kid out of the car. But it also makes judges who are all look the same, in the same neighborhood, married to each other in our courts, think that because of the way the police do their job, that only the black kids are the bad kids. Although they might know that their kids do drugs and things, but they just still don't see it globally.
Once again, experience, perspective.
Right. And they don't care about someone that doesn't look like them. And that's just human nature. And that's why we need more diversity.
But they do when they know them. Because when their little kid's best friend is the little black guy,
right, they do then.
They see it differently.
Right, but that's sometimes an exception.
I would say until something happens. I mean, I grew up, like I said, Acres Home the first half, but the second half of my life, it was usually one of only in a crowd of
to be clear, only black person.
Only black person. Sorry,
we know what you mean.
To be the only black person.
And when you're competing, then it does matter.
It does matter. And when something happens, oftentimes
you get blamed.
It was Latasha or whatever. I mean, I had an experience when I was in middle school. Mind you, of all the other friends, white, Filipino, whatever friends that I had, I was the only one that was in honors classes. I was the only one with the highest grade.
Which is rarely the presumption.
But when the other kids started not doing as well, they pointed to me and said, "Well, our parents say we can't come hang out with you anymore." And I said, well, "Why?" "Oh, they think because you're affecting our grades."
And your grades
and I said, wait,
10 times better. They don't even
I'm the
know
one
your
in the honors class. I'm the one in the honors class. I'm the one that today, so it's great. And I hung around them. I grew up with them. All of that. But until something happens, then the African American can become the easy scapegoat. And I've had that happen with me. I've had that happen with my sisters who traveled with her best friends to ski trips and so on and so forth. But when that friend got in trouble with some boy and my sister happened to be in the same room, it was all my sister's fault.
Right.
So,
which is human nature and race.
And that's why we need more diversity, like you said earlier, so that everybody has to listen to everybody's side. Yeah. But we have 5 minutes, and you didn't get to answer the question, Latasha, about if you have an opinion, you might not have one, about why at one point we could have Democrats and Republicans elected during gubernatorial, presidential elections in this huge 4 million population county, and now we can't do it. What's your take on that?
I think Ann and Ursula have said it all, and I agree with all of their opinions. I think most importantly, it is the one thing that I would reiterate is the extremism on the Republican side, but there is it also is present on the Democratic side. And I think in the past there were more of us that were more in the middle, that were less on the fringes. And today, in order to get through your primary politics, oftentimes you have to go to the extremes in order to survive and get through that. And I think it really ignores where most of us are.
We have 3 minutes, so let me
okay,
try to see if
sorry.
we can close with a different question that people
Yes.
think. People think there might be hacked electronic voting. People might think that because it's electronic, it doesn't matter if you vote at all because people will just push a button and just give it all to the Republicans since the county clerk is a Republican, and address that. Tell people why their votes count, and do you believe that there could be electronic hacking?
I believe there can be electronic hacking. Yes, absolutely. That's why you have to have someone in this office that you know is not going to finagle around with our democratic process. Your vote does matter. It's a lot easier to cheat and steal when it's little here and there. Yeah. But if you show up at the polls and you show up strong, it makes it a whole lot harder for them to steal votes.
What's your thought on that, Ursula?
I agree with Ann. What she said.
Okay, and what's your thought, Latasha?
I agree as well. I think it's much harder when people show up in droves. It's easier to hide one, but it's harder to hide 10 or 100.
So we need everybody's participation.
So in our last 3 minutes, Ann, take a minute to encourage people to get out the vote. Talk to the audience.
This election is so important. I want to see us stop using the term off-season elections. This is a gubernatorial election. It is what we call voting at home. It's wonderful that we vote in our presidential elections, but the truth of the matter is, this is the most important election that you will have probably voted in since 2008 when we elected Barack Obama president, and I know we can do that again. I'm encouraging everyone to early vote because our county clerk is saying that there's going to be confusion on November 4th, and I guarantee you over the past 3 cycles that is what we have seen. Please go and vote early. The last day for early voting is October 31st. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
All right, Ursula?
I'd say please go vote. Accept that it's math. Accept that your vote is your power. It's the only free power that every single one of us has, equally. And you certainly can't complain about anything in the system if you don't participate. If we showed the world the way Scandinavia does, or the Norwegians, or even the South Africans, that we care about government, what we create in the populace is a constituency, a new large group of people that have to be fairly represented. But that only happens if you vote. If you don't, there's no representative that has to be concerned about you or address your needs. Voting matters.
All right. Give me that last minute for you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Again, I'm going to reiterate what Ann and Ursula said. Please go vote. And the reason that it makes such a difference, as Vivian said earlier, to vote the straight Democratic Party ticket, is that when you do that, you will bring people who will make the change in the court, who will bring the right perspective. And while you might think, I'm not going to be in a criminal court, I'm not going to be in a civil court, many of the people that you know every single day appear in criminal courts, family courts, civil courts, and their lives are affected. And because of the world that we live in, if their lives are affected, your life is affected. So I encourage you, please go vote. Vote for yourself. Vote for your mama, your sister, your cousin, your neighbor across the street, because that's what you will be doing. And it's very important that you do so in 2014. Go now. Go by Friday by 7 p.m.
All right. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Hopefully our candidates have enlightened you, have inspired you. Hopefully you'll get on internet, Twitter, Instagram. You'll tell everybody to get out to vote. You'll challenge young people to vote. we're encouraging you. We only have until Friday, October 31st, to early vote until 7 p.m. and then Election Day is Tuesday. Remember, you have the right to take off to vote on Election Day. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King, and I will see you next week. Good night.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.